Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When the official trailer for the last season of The Bad Batch released a few days ago, I talked about how I wanted to dive deeper into the fate of Tech. Now, I really think that Tech will come back in one way or another in this third season that comes out in February, and I think a lot of the clues about Tech's return were kind of laid out already in the second season of The Bad Batch. That's what I want to talk about today. When the Clone Wars first introduced the Bad Batch to audiences at the Battle of Anaxis, we were given a pretty hasty introduction of this group of mutated soldiers. Each member seemed more like different classes in an online first-person shooter than individuals with their own personality and motivations. But once the Bad Batch series started, we began to dive deeper into each one of the characters. We learned about Crosshair's devotion to order and power.
Forget the Empire. This isn't you. It's your inhibitor chip. Wrong. I had my chip removed a long time ago.
We begin to see Wrecker's softer side and emotional intelligence.
Well, what do you think? I thought this place could feel more like a home.
It's perfect. Thank you, Wrecker.
We begin to understand why Echo is so driven to survive and continue fighting.
I'm going with Rex. The clones will need our help now more than ever. I can't turn my back on them.
And we also begin to understand the weight of the burden that is on Hunter's shoulders as the leader of the Bad Batch.
To lose one of your own, that must weigh heavily on you as their leader. And if you don't lower the blaster now, you will lose yet another.
It was also in the second season that we would begin to learn a lot more about who Tech was. It was almost like the creators of the show wanted to feature him more prominently in a lot of the episodes. We see that despite being the nerdier member of the group, he can really handle himself quite well in combat. Him and Echo are separated from the group during the Serrano raid, and Tech proves to be just as tough as the rest of them. We see Tech's piloting skills on display in the fourth episode of The Bad Batch, where he helps win Sid's freedom by placing first in an event on the riot race circuit on Safa Toma. As the second season continued to progress, I think a lot of fans, including myself, started to pick on the fact that we are being nudged closer and closer to Tech. I even said in one of my videos, I really hope they don't kill off Tech now that we've learned so much about him. Disney. Before we continue, we have a really cool opportunity for mobile gamers to earn some rewards from our sponsor for today's video, Misplay. Misplay is a loyalty app that tracks your playtime on several of the most popular mobile games out right now, from Raid Shadow Legends or Sniper 3D to classics like Hold'em or Fold'em Texas Poker. The more you play, the more points you earn, and these are exchanged for a variety of gift cards from Amazon and PayPal to more specific retailers like Grubhub, GameStop, and H&M. If you already find yourself on the phone playing these games for hours at a time, why not check it out and get rewarded for your gameplay? Think of it like frequent flyer miles or credit card reward points, but for mobile gaming. If this sounds like something you guys might be interested in, head over to misplay.com/generation or check out the link in the description down below. Use our link and you'll get 200 bonus points for signing up, and you can also use our code GENERATION50, that's all caps, for an additional 50 free points, which will speed you on your way to your first redemption of a gift card. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. And we weren't just seeing more of Tech. The tone in which Tech was portrayed also seemed to change quite abruptly. He went from being a likable side character to one that was much more serious, an individual who took on more leadership roles and responsibilities, especially after Echo leaves to help his fellow clones escape the Empire. Omega is extremely upset that another one of her brothers has left the group. The departure of Crosshair was hard enough for her to deal with, but now with Echo gone, she sees her entire family crumbling around her. But what's more surprising is that it's Tech who helps her deal with the situation and put things into perspective.
We're a family, aren't we?
Well, yes. Yes, of course we are.
Then why don't you act like it?
Tech was always the most pragmatic and realistic member of the group. You could also call him a bit emotionally detached from the situations he was always involved in. He always seemed too focused on his datapad to notice what was going on around him. And so you'd think that he'd probably be the last one to really be bothered by the departure of Echo and Crosshair. What we find out is the opposite. It's not that he doesn't care, he's just found a different way to process things.
Echo chose a different path, as did Crosshair. I have to respect their decision. Even though it can be difficult to understand, we must carry on.
His answer is extremely well thought out and also actually surprisingly emotionally intelligent. I've always suspected that Tech was neurologically atypical and perhaps a bit at a disadvantage when it came to his social skills. But his analytical abilities allowed him to eventually understand people just like how he understands droids, machines, complicated mathematical equations. Actually, it's very Bad Batch for him to solve a common problem in his own unique way. Very Bad Batch indeed.
I may process moments and thoughts differently, but it does not mean that I feel any less than you.
To hear Tech's self-awareness is kind of bittersweet. He's already quite an outcast belonging to a group like Clone Force 99, but even within that group, he's still a bit different. And even though his brothers might not completely understand who he is, he still chooses to be with them, out of loyalty. Instead of being bitter that the world doesn't understand him, he tries to find commonalities with these individuals and eventually grows to love them in his own way. And to make Tech's approaching demise seem even more obvious, the crew even gets a momentary vacation on the planet of Pabu where they spend some time on a small tropical island. The pirate fleet Genoa continues to aggressively pursue Tech, and for the first time in a long time we get to see the Bad Batch let their guard down. Tech even gets to put down his datapad for a second to enjoy a sunset.
I am not seeing anything.
Just wait. It'll be worth it.
It's such a punch in the gut. It's deceitful. It's a cheap way to write a story to show us what kind of life the hero could have if he chose to be a little more selfish and sacrifice less for the galaxy. I mean, the entire second season just felt like Tech was finally coming to terms with his place in life and opening up to the audience about who he is. It's an emotional fattening of the turkey before the slaughter, if you will. And so when Tech decides to sacrifice himself, I think very few of us were surprised that it happened. We don't even need any explanation for it. The entire second season has built up to this moment. Of course, this doesn't make his death any less painful for the audience. I mean, we're being forced to empathize with him, to see his humanity. I say it's deceitful and cheap when it's not really. I'm just venting and being angry. You know, when you see the planning in any story, when you see how the sausage is being made, when you remove the fourth wall, it does make things seem a bit less special. But I believe Disney and Star Wars, well, they don't build up characters for no reason. When a character is built up like this in Star Wars or in any other Disney franchise, whether it's Marvel or their, cartoons, the incentive to keep them alive is oftentimes going to override any artistic angle or individual story arc. Some fans, and of course the money people at Disney, just don't want to see beloved characters who have proven to draw audiences to a show, to the theaters, to just die like that. They want to make spin-offs, they want to make comics, video games, TV shows, and the like. In a lot of ways, Star Wars, most Disney enterprises are the ultimate money generator. The creators in these franchises are constantly throwing characters against a board to see if they stick. And if they do stick, the financial incentive to bring them back will overwhelm any other kind of rule in the franchise or the lore. I mean, it doesn't matter how tortured that character becomes because you keep reviving them. It doesn't matter if they turn into an empty shell of what they once were. It's really money that drives everything, even in entertainment like this. I mean, Maul was cut in half and fell 100 meters down a shaft, but then Lucasfilms realized how popular of a character he was, and so he couldn't die. Boba Fett was a lesser-known side character who fell into a Sarlacc pit. No one was supposed to survive that, but Boba Fett became a huge fan favorite. Not even the Jedi can die peacefully. They all have to continue their tied existence as Force ghosts, like some type of immortal NPC that hangs around and just gives people advice all the time. No, the only time anyone dies is when their character becomes too expensive to portray on screen or the actor simply has no desire to continue the role anymore. I think this is what the Bad Batch creators really wanted. They really endeared us to this one character, ripped them away from us so that the entire offseason we can still be glued to the TV set trying to figure out what's going to happen. And what will happen? Well, the first clue lies in the last episode shortly after Tech is seen falling to his supposed death. Dr. Royce Hemlock manages to capture Wrecker and taunts Hunter with the broken glasses of his clone brother. It's a clear power move that is designed to make Hunter feel hopeless, and ideally this makes him give in to Dr. Hemlock's wishes, which is to find Omega. And the reason why Dr. Hemlock wants to find Omega is because he wants to return her to Nala Se.
Your Prime Minister mentioned you had an attachment to the young clone, so I've returned her to you. Perhaps now you will reconsider working on the Emperor's project.
Nala Se was the architect for the entire clone army program. She was the one who manipulated the Fett DNA and created a more acceptable version of it for mass production. It was also Nala Se who created Omega and the rest of the mutated clones. And the Emperor believed that Nala Se's technical excellence was really the key to figuring out how to clone Force sensitives, which is unfortunately much easier said than done.
What he seeks is not possible.
Make it possible. If you refuse or fail, Omega will suffer the consequences.
Given Nala Se's track record and cold-hearted approach to cloning, I actually believe her here. It's not that she has any ethical or moral constraints about cloning a Force sensitive, she literally thinks it's impossible. That or she's still pissed off at the Empire for blowing up her homeworld. Cloning in general seems to be a technology that Emperor Palpatine really likes, whether it's to create his own new body or to create more super soldiers to protect him. And it's for this reason why after Crosshair goes full metal jacket on that arrogant Imperial commander, he doesn't just get executed for his disobedience. No, he's far too valuable to the Empire. Not only because of the information in his head that could lead to the capture of Omega, but his genetic material is also extremely important. Crosshair is a one of one. His enhanced eyesight and reflexes make him one of the deadliest marksmen in the entire galaxy. The Empire, as chaotic as it was, would never throw away such a useful specimen. The same thing could be said about Hunter, Wrecker, and of course Tech. Tech has genius-level intellect and analytical abilities. He's a savant, a gifted individual who also is an obedient and trustworthy soldier. I mean, these guys are basically every military commander's wet dream. And although Dr. Hemlock's primary goal right now is to create a Force-sensitive clone for Emperor Palpatine, and with the TK Trooper development program still in the beta phase, I refuse to believe that the Empire would skip out on an opportunity to create an alternative super soldier program. That is, after all, how Palpatine did things. He would find ruthless project managers with Sith-like qualities, assign them competing projects, and see who wins in all-out battles. Admiral Edmund Rampart, the architect for Project Warmantle, which would turn into the TK Trooper program, and also the individual in charge of the destruction of Tipica City, would be thrown under the bus by Palpatine after he ceased to be useful. The Empire would actually pin the destruction of the Kaminoan cloning facilities on him. Classic authoritarian nonsense. Take credit for all of your underling successes and then shift all the blame to them as well. And so even if Dr. Hemlock only recovers a dead Tech, the DNA and genetic material from his body is extremely useful. It's very possible that they could just clone him and bring another version of him back to life. Although that would be extremely gruesome and probably not fit in well for what is a TV show for kids. Which means that an alternative path is also likely. He survives. I mean, close to the end of Season 1, another one of the Bad Batch crew fell from great heights and manages to survive. When Hunter falls, the audience is shown that he's alright immediately, but that does mean the suit of armor, the clone commando gear they have, is pretty robust. In Legends, the Katarn-class commando suit could withstand extreme trauma and even absorb the impact of railguns. It also had an auto back-to-injector system which could help repair any major damage and internal bleeding someone might suffer from falling from great heights. Also, I'd like to point out that Tech literally fell into some low-lying clouds. It's almost as if they purposely obscured what was below to keep us from seeing just how far he falls. There can literally be anything down there. You know, a giant trampoline, a net, a cable of some kind, maybe a few feet of powder that could soften the impact, or maybe an icy slope that he can kind of hit and then continue sliding down without taking too much damage. The point is, the possibilities are endless and also hidden by the clouds. So I think there's a very high possibility that Dr. Hemlock or maybe even Tarkin's people have Tech in custody. The damage to his body will be immense. He'll need to go through some kind of emergency procedure and need to be hidden somewhere. I mean, just a little Bacta this time around won't be enough. Think more of a Darth Vader or General Grievous or even Echo treatment. And that might not freak Tech out. After all, this guy is already glued to the datapad all the time. I mean, why not just make that datapad a part of him? It's possible that Tech is even on Mount Tantus, hidden somewhere being operated on as we speak. And this would make all of those little story details, all the things we learn about Tech in this second season, make a lot more sense. I mean, why build up a character like this? Why spend so much time if you're just gonna rip them away from the audience. The setup is perfect. We always assumed that Tech was quite robotic, but then when we see the conversations with Omega, we realize that he's not. And if he somehow returns as an unfeeling robot, we'll feel the loss of his personality and character even more. Of course, we won't really know what happens until the final season of The Bad Batch. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think will happen. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.
Pretty spectacular, right?
I suppose that is one way to quantify it.